for his talk this afternoon.
Thanks, Michael. Good afternoon, everyone. And thank you for making the time after lunch. I hope you enjoyed the lunch. So my name is Mouaz Alnouri, and I am the Managing Director of Skillfield, which is a cybersecurity consultancy company. I am also a cybersecurity professional and a certified CISP. I'm also a graduate from the Australian Institute of Company Directors, which gives me the luxury of being able to speak both languages as a cybersecurity professional as well as a company director. Today, we will be talking about the cybersecurity governance for board of directors. Why is this now an interest? According to a Gartner research, the interest and the perception of the cybersecurity risks for the board of directors has changed over time. In a survey that Gartner did in 2016, 58% only of the board of directors looked at cybersecurity as a business risk and said they were looking at it as a technology risk. In 2022, when the same survey was conducted, 88% of the board of directors are now looking at the cybersecurity risk as a business risk, not as a technology risk anymore. And this is because the cybersecurity incident is disruptive to the business. It has a big impact on the business operations, on the profit and the revenue and the reputation, and at some point, the cybersecurity risk can cause business to shut down. So that's why the board of directors' perception for the cybersecurity risk has changed towards being more a business risk, not only a technology risk. And as a result, we as a cybersecurity professionals started getting all these requests and all these questions from the board of directors about cybersecurity. So I can get a bit of a sense of the room. Can you please raise your hand if you are currently a board member or sitting on a board or working in a board committee? Thank you. And also, can you raise your hand if you are a cybersecurity professional that works closely with the boards or getting requests from the boards? Thank you. I think for the team, the cybersecurity professionals, we all agree that we are busy. We have limited time. We are always busy looking at our alerts. We are always looking at our tools. We are always busy updating our policy, investigating incidents. And now on top of that, we need to address the concerns and the questions that's coming from the board. So how can we work together as cybersecurity professionals with the board of directors in order to achieve two things? One thing is that the organization is efficiently governed, and the second thing is that the organization is protected from the cybersecurity threats and ready to defeat those threats. To answer these questions, we need to look at what is the interest of the board of directors, what's on top of their minds. Why would someone sit on the board? If we remove the personal interest of the purpose and of the organization, what's always on top of the company's directors or the board of directors' mind are three main things. The first thing is compliance. The board of directors, the most important thing that's always on top of their head is that we need to comply with the laws and regulations. So that's number one. Number two, it's achieve the company's strategic objectives, whether they are financials or non-financials. Number three is the risk management. These are the top three priorities in general for any board of director of boards who is sitting on a board. Compliance with laws and regulations, strategic objectives, and risks. And throughout addressing those top priorities, communication is extremely important. So if we understand that this is what the board is looking at and the directors are concerned about, the question is, what do the board members expect from us as cybersecurity professionals in order to address their main concerns? Now we start with the first box. The first box was compliance, or the first circle was compliance, right? Compliance with the laws and regulations. So what do the board of directors expect from us as cybersecurity professionals when it comes to the compliance? They are expecting us as cybersecurity professionals to understand the relevant laws and regulations, particularly the sections related to the cybersecurity. So the applicable laws and regulations, particularly in relations to the cybersecurity. We are not legal experts. I am not a legal expert, and I think here you can see a disclaimer that the legal team advised me to put that it's not a legal advice, and we're not providing any legal advice here. But we still need to understand what are the applicable laws and regulations for the company, and what are the sections or the clauses that are related to the cybersecurity. And if we are not sure, we can always consult the lawyer and the legal teams for our firm. We are not alone. But yet we need to act, and we need to understand what are the applicable laws and regulations and understand the related clauses for the cybersecurity. Here are some examples. The first one is the Corporations Act. The Corporations Act actually highlights that all company directors need to act and do their due care and due diligence. In a good faith, it's a long statement, but to do the due care and due diligence. What does it mean? It means that the company directors are expected to ask us all these questions about the cybersecurity. The company directors are expected actually to ask us for evidence that we are implemented the right cybersecurity controls in order to protect the organizations from the cyber attacks, and we are doing the right things. So when the company directors are asking you about cybersecurity or asking us as cybersecurity professionals to provide evidence, it's because it's part of their duty. It's part of their duty to do their due care and due diligence to make sure that the risk of the organization is governed. And that's why when we receive requests from the company directors, we need to understand that they are doing their duties, which is highlighted by law. The second one is the Privacy Act. This is a famous one I think we are all familiar with. With the Privacy Act, it highlights certain requirements about storing the data, deleting the data, retaining the data, having access to the data, etc., etc. If you are a company that handles the Privacy Act and you are as a cybersecurity professional, you must familiarize yourself with the Privacy Act and what are the requirements in that act. Another example is security of critical infrastructure. Again, security of critical infrastructure, it's a very important regulation and highlights requirements for critical infrastructure providers that they need to comply with. So if we work in such organization, we need to understand what is this regulation and what are the requirements that we need to support our organizations to comply with. You will hear me talking a lot in today's talk about how can we as cybersecurity professionals support the business. And I'll be talking about this later more, but it's more about supporting the business. Fear is there. Yes, we are all scared of the cyber attacks, but that's not the only driver for us as cybersecurity professionals. Supporting the business is our functions. To support the business, we need to understand the laws and regulations in order to identify the best way to support the business. Another one is the consumer data right, which is coming under the new act in order that gives the consumers the right to share their data across multiple organizations. So the consumer will have the right to share the data, and the organization who holds the data needs to apply certain security controls in order to protect the consumer data. So if we are an organization that has this law applicable, we need to familiarize ourselves with APRA. Any financial services or financial licensee needs to comply with the APRA CPS 234. ASX listing rules. For the ASX listing rules, it have requirements for operational quality, which includes cybersecurity and availability of the services. And also it has a requirements that if there's any incident that will impact the share price, you must notify ASX. This is what we need to understand as cybersecurity professionals. If we are not sure, guys, please consult your legal team. Ask your legal teams. This is our organization. This is what we do. What are the applicable laws? What are our obligations as an organization and as a security professionals to comply with these rules and regulations? So that's the first one that will address the compliance circle from the director's top priorities. The second top priority is to achieve the strategic objectives, whether they are financials or non-financials. In order to do this, we as cybersecurity professionals need always to have the company's vision and mission in our heart. We need always to have the company's vision and mission. We need to familiarize yourself with the vision and mission and what is the company is trying to achieve. And then what we need to do, we need to have the security capabilities, and then we need to link the security capabilities with those visions and mission. This is called a strategy map. It's a very important, very useful tool that will help you connect your security capabilities with the vision and mission. So when we talk to the board of directors, we are not using fear to ask for more requirements. We are actually creating opportunities, and that's the theme for our meetup today with the CyberCon, right? We are creating opportunities. So how can we do this? What we need to identify next is what are the layers or the pathway between the security capability and the vision and the mission. In general, these are like general items. So the security capability will improve the internal business processes, will have an impact on the customer, will have financial impacts, that will help us achieve our vision and mission. This is an example only. Feel free to change the column on the left depending on your use case and depending on how do you want to convince and sell that the security capability is actually a business enabler that help us with our vision and the mission. So let's say that we are a software development company and I am a security professional and I want to talk to the board of directors and convince them that we need to spend more on the security in order to achieve the vision and the mission. Let's say that we want to improve our security processes. That's what we want to do. When we improve our security maturity and our security processes, this will help us achieve and maintain a security accreditation, like for example, ISO accreditation or NIST accreditation or IRAP, being IRAP assessed. If we improve our security processes, this will help us achieve and maintain security accreditation. This is the impact on the internal business processes. What does it mean to our customers? It means it will improve our brand. We are no longer an IT shop that does software developments. We are a software development company that actually have an accreditation and implement the best practices when it comes to the software development. That's how it can help us improve our brand. What does improving our brand mean? It means we can improve our margins. We are no longer charging like the minimum. We are improving our margins. We are charging premium for our services. Again, why? Because we are a company that's implement the right security processes. We have an accreditation. We have a strong brand, improve our margins, and of course that can help us achieve our vision and mission. This is an example. I have used it for our organization, and I really recommend that you use the same for your organization. This is called a strategy map. Connect your security capability with the company's vision and mission. And by doing this, you will be addressing the second priority for the board of directors, and that is achieve the company's strategic objectives, whether they are financials or non-financials. Now here's another example. If we implement a proper security governance in our organization, what does it mean to our organization? It means we will be able to perform regular audits. What does it mean to our customers? It means if a customer, and now you've seen this, you're seeing this a lot. If you are signing an MSA with the customers, normally the customers will do some kind of an audit and they will request evidence. If we are performing regular audits, it means anytime we are signing a new agreement with the customer and the customer wants to do an audit for our security controls, guess what? We are ready. We already have that because we are continuously performing it, which means that we can win more customers easily, increase our market share, and improve and achieve our vision and the mission. Last example I want to leave you with, if we have a secure environment coding standards, if we want to implement the best security code standards internally in our company, this means that we can have a fast and secure developments, release new products, increase our revenue, and achieve our vision and the mission. This is called a strategy map. It's a great tool that I really recommend that you use it. Fear is there. I acknowledge that, I understand, but it's not the only driver for us to push for cybersecurity. Cybersecurity gives us opportunities. All right? I was talking with the team the other day, and I was saying that if you are walking on a very narrow line, you will be, wiggling around, just being careful not to fall off, right? But if you have a guide rails, you will be able to run, even if it was a narrow path. This is what it is with the cybersecurity. The cybersecurity will give us this assurance that we can run faster as a business. Yes, it will protect us. Yes, there is the fear, but also the cybersecurity helps us create opportunities. So we as cybersecurity professionals need to stop only using fear and using cybersecurity to connect with the vision and the mission and achieve the company's strategic objectives. The third thing that the company directors care about, of course, is the risk management. And this is the fear part that I talked about. With the risk management of the boards, now we as cybersecurity professionals, we have different risk management framework, whether it's ISO or NIST or any other cybersecurity risk management framework that we use. When we talk with the board about the risk management, the board might be using the same framework as us, which is great, but most probably they are using a much simpler one. What we need to do as cybersecurity professionals is not to send them our Excel sheet or our risk register as is. What we need to do is to ask them, can you give me a copy of your risk management framework, so I can understand what risk management framework you do, and then all we need to do as cybersecurity professionals is to translate our risk management framework into their risk management framework so we can speak the same language. And just remember, the translation is easy. At the end of the day, risk management is all about risk treatment, risk assessment, and risk monitoring. These are the main components of the risk management. If we use these components, we can translate our risk register to a language that the boards of directors understand. So that would address the third bubble that we talked about. So the first one was compliance, the second one was achieve the business strategic objectives, and the third one is the risk management. Now let's go into the communication. So what do the board of directors expecting from us when it comes to the communication? First of all, the board of directors expecting from us always to provide a roadmap with options. We need to give the board of directors options. I know that we want it all and we want it now, but that's very hard, that's impossible to achieve, right? What we need to do, we need to give the board always a roadmap and give them options to decide on what to do. Now, when we do this, what we need to do, we need to take everything we have. We need to look at our critical asset register, our compliance requirements, the legal checks that we did with the legal team in order to understand our legal obligations. We need to take our risk assessments, historical assessments. We need to take all these information, perform a gap assessments, prioritize and provide a roadmap, and give them options. This is the best way to communicate with the board of directors when we want their advice, to provide us guidelines, to provide us with budget. We need to provide a roadmap with options. And last but not least, this is an example of a roadmap. So for example, let's say that we are an organization and we want to achieve ISO certifications. Yes, ISO certification, we want to achieve it, but it's a long way. So what we can do, we can tell, let's start by achieving Essential 8 Maturity 2. That can be a good starting point. That can be, for example, done in 2023, this financial year. And then in the next financial year, what we will do is that we will start doing the CIS control. That gives us different implementation group, and it's also staged and has different implementation controls. Then we will gradually achieve the ISO certificate. So if you jump from 0 to ISO, it's gonna be a long process. It's gonna cost a lot of money to achieve that. What you need to do is break it down into a roadmap, give them a roadmap, and give them options. Then what you can do, you can sell this roadmap and tell them, once we achieve ISO, then we can look at ISM controls and be compliant with the Australian government's requirements, and that can help us win government contracts and increase our market share again and win more customers. This is an example for a roadmap. Now, when it comes to the reporting, to the communications as well, there's another aspect of it. So the first one, provide roadmap with options. This is required when you are on a yearly basis, when you're building your cybersecurity program and cybersecurity strategy. On a regular basis, you need to report to the board. As I said, why do I need to report to the board? Because it's the board's requirements to make sure to act in due care and due diligence and make sure that the right things are being implemented in the organizations. They have a legal obligation to ask you these questions. So collaborate with them. So what we need to update to the board? The board wouldn't be interested into looking at your risk register always. What they would be interested to look at are the risks status update. What do I mean? If you have a risk that was rated as low and it has changed as high because the impact or the likelihood has changed, the board needs to be aware of. So the risk that changes from low to high or medium to high, the board needs to know about them. Another risk the board needs to know about are the emerged risks. If there's a new risk that's come up, the board needs to be notified that there is a new risk. For example, when we have COVID, that's created a heaps of risks that had to be discussed with the board. So don't overload the boards with the same risk register every time. The board needs to be communicated and updated only about the risk status update. These are the risks that have changed their severity or their rating, or the risks that have emerged. The second thing the board needs to know about are the audit for treatments for applied to high risks. Again, the board needs to make sure to act in due care and due diligence, and part of their requirements, legal obligations, they need to make sure that if they have identified a risk as a high risk, and then they put together with you a mitigation, they need to make sure that this mitigation is working effectively. Say, for example, that phishing is a great risk, and the board of directors says, you know what, security awareness training is our treatment for the risk, and that should reduce the risk. What you need to report continuously to the board is, for example, the percentage of completion of the security awareness trainings. And also the board of directors need to ask for these questions. Why? Because it's a high risk, and we have identified a treatment plan for it. So we need to make sure that we continuously receive updates about these audits of those risk treatments in order to make sure that those high risks and the controls that we have put together are effective to mitigate those high risks. Least but not last, the cybersecurity project updates. So if you have a budget that was approved by the board and you are working on the projects, please provide them with updates. Again, they approved those projects in order to mitigate the risk. It's their duty to make sure that these projects are running smoothly and being implemented. So we as cybersecurity professionals should not be defensive, should really collaborate with them and work with them. We should understand that any person who is sitting on the board is asking those questions because it's their duty. They have these legal obligations to do that, and we need to collaborate with them to help protect the organizations and ensure that it is governed. This is an example of cybersecurity dashboards. You can see that we report the risks and the risk updates, some of the remediation options. Remember, always give options, business goals at risk. Always talk business, don't talk only security and fear. Talk about business goals at risks, and you can talk about the security threats. This is a very nice report as well that available on Gartner. This is a cybersecurity framework implementation against NIST. It shows the implementation against each one of those sections, and this section shows you the maturity against the different areas of NIST. Again, it's just an example. Make it simple to the point when you report to the board. Don't overload them with information. So that's what the board is expecting from us as cybersecurity professionals. Now let's look at the other way around. What does we as cybersecurity professionals expect from the respective board members who are sitting on the boards? The first thing we are expecting from them is to please educate yourself with cybersecurity. In today's world, if you want to sit on a board, you must understand financials. You must be able to understand profit and loss, balance sheet. All these financial aspects are a must knowledge for any person who is sitting on a board of directors. Also, cybersecurity, understanding the language, understanding the terms, having a basic knowledge of the cybersecurity today is a requirement for the board of directors. So we as a board of directors as well, we need to make sure that we educate ourselves with the cybersecurity language. We understand what is a threat, what's a vulnerability. We know the risk management framework, and by the way, it's the same thing with the risk. Cybersecurity is another business risk, right? So it's very similar. What we need to do, we need to educate ourselves with the cybersecurity language in order to make it easy for us to communicate and collaborate with the cybersecurity professionals. The second thing that we are expecting from the board of directors is actually to lead from the top, to lead by example, to promote a security in our culture, not to create another culture, to create security, to promote security in our culture. Lead by example. If you have imposed security awareness trainings on your staff and you are a board of directors, you must show everyone that you are also doing these trainings. Lead by example. If there's certain rules that you have, you must comply with those rules. If two-factor authentication is applied for all, you need to apply for all. If you have a mobile phone that your policy says must be protected by a passcode, create a passcode for it. Lead by example. Promote the security in your culture. Encourage open communications. The last thing any cybersecurity, any organization wants is that something bad happens and no one opens up and talks about it. Promote an open communications culture. How can you do this? By simply speaking up. Encourage, talk about mistakes that happen. In my organization, once there was someone from the team reached out to me asking me to give her access to our Office 365 instance. A couple of minutes later, I received an email to approve access to our Office 365 instance. When I clicked on it, guess what? It was a phishing test. and I failed the test, and I let everyone in the team know that I failed the test, because that's exactly the moment that the phishers are waiting for. They're waiting for someone that has this context who would click on the link. I mean, everyone know that I have done these mistakes, and that encourages that other people come forward and say, I did this mistake as well, or someone else did that mistake. We learn from each other, encourage the open communications. Provide resources to the cybersecurity team. We need definitely resources. We need support. We need budget as well in order to improve the cybersecurity posture. And last but not least, hold management accountable. How can you do this? By having certain metrics, for example. Metrics is a great way to hold people accountable. And the last thing that we expect from the board of directors as well are to make decisions. We are not talking about taking every decision on our behalf, but there are critical decisions that must be taken must be taken by the board of directors. And here I must warn my fellow cybersecurity professionals. If you have been, and listen carefully, if you have been invited to the board of directors to provide advice about the cybersecurity matter, make sure that you are only there to provide advice. Do not take a decision on their behalf. Otherwise, you can be held accountable for the decision, and you can be treated as a shadow director. So when you are there in the room, you are providing a roadmap, you are providing options, you are providing expert advice, but then who needs to take the decision? It's the board of directors. So my fellow cybersecurity professionals, be careful. When you are there in the room, provide advice, and then make sure that the board of directors take the decisions. It's not us who are taking the decisions. Again, we are not expecting them to take every decision. They are not middle management, but when there is a decision needs to be taken about a certain direction, it's the board of directors who needs to take that decision. So in summary, it's very important for us as cybersecurity professionals to work together with the board of directors in order to ensure that the company and the organization is governed, and at the same time is being protected from threats. What the board of directors is expecting from us as cybersecurity professionals, they are expecting from us to understand the applicable laws and regulations and their in relation to the cybersecurity, not the whole law and regulations, in relation to the cybersecurity. What are the related clauses? They are expecting from us to be able to speak their language when it comes to the risk management and use their risk management framework. They are expecting from us to talk about the business and connect the cybersecurity controls and works that we are doing to help them achieve the business strategic objectives. They are expecting us to communicate by regularly reporting and also by providing always roadmaps with options. This is what the board of directors is expecting from us as cybersecurity professionals. Vice versa, what do we expect from the board of directors? Please educate yourself with cybersecurity language, lead, encourage the cybersecurity in our culture, and lead by example. And last but not least, we are expecting them to make the key decisions, not rely on us to take those decisions. Thank you, that's all from me. This is a QR code that will take you to a blog post on our website that talks about the 5 principles for cybersecurity governance for board of directors. It's based on the Australian Institute of Company Directors paper as well. So it's a nice read to go through for any board members to go through, also for the cybersecurity professionals to know and learn what are the concerns and how do the board of directors think. I hope this helps, guys, and thank you for listening. I think we've got some time for questions, if anyone have any questions.
All right, I have a question. So, I'm just going to speak up. So regarding your suggestion to, the board needs to educate itself and lead by example, like how many times did we experience where the board just goes and asks for some very insecure things and doesn't really lead by example? So how do you suggest to address that? Big companies, large tier 1 companies, that the board will come and like, oh, we need this new third-party reporting tool that's going to suck out all the data out of all of our systems, and it's going to be only a 4-digit PIN for us to access it, no password, no nothing. So it gets really nightmarish for a security person. So what would be your suggestion how to actually address these instances?
Well, that's a very good question. And look, there will be always an exception. So in one of the customers that we did audit for once, actually the security team was talking that the board of directors, there are some directors that they don't have a passcode on their phone. So it's actually, the point is that the words get spreaded and everyone would know. So if the board of directors are taking exceptions, these exceptions would definitely be, everyone would hear about them, and that will drive the wrong culture in the organization. So if a board of, I will tell you, the most thing that makes the board of directors case when you tell them that we'll hold you accountable and let's put it in writing. So if the board of directors is making an exception, that's fine. Ask them, let's make it in writing and let's add it to the meeting's minutes. And I think that will definitely help them say, oh, okay, hold off, maybe let's revisit this or something else. And also, by the way, even if you put it in writing and you are one board of directors who is asking for exception, the rest of the directors are also accountable to make sure that they question the decision. So make it in writing, that will always help.
Thanks.
Following on from that, you might point out to the directors section 180, subsection 1B of the Corporations Act, where they can be personally liable if something goes wrong, because no reasonable director would sign off on such a process, arguably. So it could be their house at stake.
Yep.
That generally gets their attention. Yeah, John Silver's very cool. I didn't see in your presentation there much focus on communicating the return on investment to the board and often the influential decision maker is the CFO. That they will be having their own metrics compared to all of the other investment decisions that they have the choice as to where to spend money. And need to engage with them to understand their model for how they make those investment decisions. Because often the CISO puts up that lovely suite you proposed of things to do, and it's really frustrating when the board comes back and denies, half of the $3. So what are your thoughts on engaging on the financial side to get the board's and CFO sign off?
Yeah, thank you. In my opinion, if I go back to the strategy map that we talked about, the strategy map will actually connect the cybersecurity initiatives that you are working on with the financials impact. So you see the financials impacts, and that will help us achieve the vision and the mission. So at the end of the day, before, in my opinion, what should happen, before even you request budget to do something in your cybersecurity program, try to connect it with the financials. Because in this case, when you connect it with the financials, in this case, you are forcing yourself as well as a cybersecurity professional to measure the return on investment. And then you can continuously measure the return on investments, and that will help you as well request for more budget because it is working. So use the strategy map, always have the financials in there. Now, starts with the security control, finish with the vision and the mission, and most probably always before that, you need to have that financial layer in, because at the end of the day, financials will enable us to achieve our vision and the mission. Thank you.
Yeah, so my question was, so we see more and more boards these days that are more cyber aware, more cyber forward, right? And certain decisions are made or directions taken that have implications for security teams. In reality, there's a bit of a gap in terms of what a board might perceive to be a good idea security advice versus some of the practitioners. So what are some ways in which you can bridge that gap and bring those two groups closer together?
Thank you. In no position, and I know that there are here some experienced board members, the board needs to take decisions on behalf of the management and the executives of the organizations. The board is there to govern and provide guidance, provide that level of governance as that. It's more about questioning, like someone out of the box thinking and questioning the levels. I agree with you, the board shouldn't impose a strategy on the cybersecurity team or on the organizations to follow certain things. It's the other way around. The cybersecurity teams should work with the management, with the whole organization, with the CEO to promote to the board roadmap with options, and then the board would question and then advise and approve and select one of the options. Even if the board is providing some recommendations, these should be taken into consideration, blended with the work that the executives are doing, and then feed back into the if the board of directors are imposing certain things on the management, in all cases, the management can always push on the boards and say, this is a management issue, we'll work on it, and we'll provide you with the recommendations. So that separation must happen. If it doesn't happen, in my opinion, the management teams needs to push back. And the way they push back, always provide options, always advice. Why are you pushing back? Why is this a bad option? In order to avoid also creating a bad culture. So what you need to do, always assess that recommendations, provide your assessment, provide options, and feed back into the board to take decisions. Any last questions? All right, thank you again for making the time. I'll be around for the rest of the day. Appreciate you guys. Thank you. Thank you, Mike.